What's up, everybody? James Bichelle here, and I'm back at you with another video. So this video, of course, is my spoiler review of Oathbreaker, which is the third episode of Season 6 of Game of Thrones. So if you have not watched the episode, you may want to watch it and then come back and watch this and let me know what you thought of said episode. So yeah, my general thoughts as a whole on this episode is that there was some high moments, and there was some low moments. Mainly, my issue with the episode was that it had a lot of filler. That being said, there was one moment for me that, was really epic. And I will reveal that at the end. So starting off, we'll start with the first scene, which is Jon Snow awakening from death after Mel resurrected him. And one thing that was interesting in this scene for me was that the prince that was promised was mentioned. Of course, the show has not really mentioned prophecy at all. It's been since Season 2, Episode 1, when Stannis was introduced, where Mel called him Azor Ahai. So, I wish they were a little more consistent with their prophecy. I wish it would have been brought up more throughout the seasons. But, I'll take what I can get. I thought something that was interesting was when Jon was resurrected, he was actually more emo than he was before. And then he mentioned he saw nothing in death. That was all very interesting. Of course, then Davos, has this speech to him, where he tells him, this is your second chance, go out there and fail again, is what he told him. Which was all fine, and I enjoyed their interaction. And then, of course, Jon goes out into the courtyard, sees Tormund and Ed. Tormund tells him, he knows he's not a god because a god wouldn't have a pecker that small. That induced a chuckle for sure. And then, of course, there was a touching moment between Ed and Jon. So yeah, that scene was perfectly fine. I had no qualms with it. The next scene, not much to talk about. It's involving Sam and Gilly. I thought this was kind of a filler scene. I mean, it does tell you that, Sam tells Gilly that they are going to Horn Hill. And we also learned that Gilly's baby is indeed still a baby after 3 seasons. So, yeah, that scene was fine. I just thought it kind of dragged on a little bit. Was kind of fillery. But, it is what it is. Now, of course, the next scene is the big one. The Tower of Joy. This is the scene that everyone was looking forward to, that was scared to see. And you know what? It was interesting. They had some of the same dialogue from the books, which was cool. And one thing that interested me, though, was the fact that Gerald Hightower wasn't there. It was just Arthur Dayne and Oswell Went. Even though in Season 4, I believe, they specifically said Gerald Hightower died at the Tower of Joy. And Gerald Hightower was mentioned again later in this episode in King's Landing. So, I don't know if they're maybe he's going to be in the tower or something. Because, in their canon, in show canon, they've said Gerald Hightower was at the Tower of Joy and then he died there. So, I hope they deliver on that. Because you need to have consistent storytelling. And, yeah. So, hopefully, maybe he's in the tower or something and we'll see. We'll figure out what's going on there. And, Arthur Dayne was definitely pretty badass. I had no problems with him dual wielding because they never mentioned Dawn, so they didn't need to have him specifically wield Dawn because they never mentioned it in the show. So yeah, I thought him dual wielding was pretty badass. He held his own. He was doing some cool crap with the swords, and yeah, the action was fine. It was cool, and he did get stabbed in the back by Howland Reed. And one thing that was interesting as well was the fact that when Bran yelled out for his father, that Ned turned around and maybe heard something or something, and there's always been the talk about how you hear the rustling in the trees, which could be involved with like Bran time traveling. So I found that all very interesting. It definitely seems like maybe that there's some effect. I mean, obviously he probably can't change the past, obviously, but there's, some audible clues that says, hey, Bran's there. So that's cool. Of course, we hear the scream. I listened to it about 12 to 13 times, and I think it was a baby scream. There's talk that was it a scream of Lyanna being in labor, or was it a baby crying? I thought it was kind of a baby cry scream, but it's hard to tell. So of course, Bloodraven gives the audience blue balls as he takes Bran out of the vision. Obviously we all wanted to see what's going on inside the tower, but I think we're going to get that in episode 5, I believe. The next scene is Bloodraven and Bran in the tree, and one thing that's, interested me was the fact that the dialogue that he said that I've been in this tree for 1,000 years. I hope that's hyperbole, because obviously he's supposed to be Brendan Rivers, and he's supposed to have only been in the tree for about 100 years. So I don't know if this is a change that the showrunners are going with. Maybe they're not even going to make him Brendan Rivers, because first off, they've never even, they haven't mentioned his name yet, and they've never even really mentioned the Blackfires or any of that stuff with Targaryen history. So maybe they won't even go that route. Maybe they'll go something, that they want to create on their own. So it does seem like that Bloodraven is 1,000 years old on the show. Also found interesting was the fact that if you look closely, there was 2 children of the forest in the tree, not just Leaf. I thought at first it was just a reflection of Leaf that they were showing on the screen, but you could see that they were moving their heads at different times. So there's 2 children of the forest in the tree. I don't know if you guys caught that on first glance, but yeah, I did on my second viewing. So I think that's interesting. I'm interested to see where that whole storyline is going to go. Scene 5 involved Dany. It was your typical Dany scene. Someone of authority, talks her down, and she repeats her titles. I thought it was fillery. That's just me. I didn't really take much of importance out of it. But yeah, it was fine. It was whatever. It served its purpose, I guess. I just thought it was kind of fillery. Thought maybe they should have saved it for next episode, which seems like it's going to be a Dany-heavy episode. But, I guess I got to remind the audience that Dany is still there and doing something. Next scene was very interesting to me. It was the Varys scene. He coerces a woman named Vala, who we saw in last season. She was getting the Unsullied killed. She would lay with them, and then they would get their throats cut. So she's obviously working with Sons of the Harpy. It was interesting. We see Varys getting stuff done, threatening her son. Well, she wouldn't threaten her son, because he said he wouldn't hurt her son. But essentially he was saying, do you want your kid to be an orphan, was essentially what he was saying. And then eventually he learns that the Harpy, who's behind the Harpy is like the Masters of Astapor and the Masters of Yunkai. Of course, this is all set up for the Battle of Fire. So I'll be interested to see what they do there. Didn't think we were going to get the Battle of Fire, but it sure seems like we might get a variation of the Battle of Fire. The whole Tyrion, Missandei, Grey Worm stuff, that was all just filler. They could have cut that out, really. I think they could have just went straight from Varys coercing Vala, and then having him just walk into the room with them and then tell him the situation. Just me. I think they could have cut that 5 minutes out, but it is what it is. Next, we'll move to King's Landing. We see Qyburn taking over Varys' network of little birds. It was interesting to see them talk, because they have tongues. But, it's whatever. It's not a huge thing for me that they changed that. One thing that was interesting was that Gregor was mentioned by name. So it's definitely... obviously we knew that it was Gregor as Sir Robert Strong, but now it is 100% confirmed that Gregor is indeed Robert Strong. Cersei tells Qyburn she wants spies all over Westeros. She wants spies in Dorne. She wants spies in the Reach. She wants spies in the North. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what comes of that, if anything at all. I look forward to that. The next scene, they're Cersei, Jaime, and the Mountain come into the small council chamber, and essentially they're blustering and they want to sit down the council. This is where Gerald Hightower's name is mentioned in this episode, as I believe it's Pycelle recants that Gerald Hightower, the former Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, would sit on council meetings. So yeah, that gives Jaime precedence essentially to sit on the council. But then, of course, the Queen of Thorns, she has her bars with Cersei. Kevin also has his, his issues with Cersei. They talk it out, and essentially Kevin says, you know what? You guys can sit down on the council. You can't make us stay. So Queen of Thorns, Kevin, Mace Tyrell, they all get up and bounce. Of course, Pycelle is last. He I think his death was foreshadowed here. He will be killed by by Gregor, because first he was talking shit during the first part of the scene on Gregor, and then of course they have this stare down where Pycelle is scared and runs out of the room like a coward, and I think that's going to foreshadow his death. And one other thing that I found very interesting from the scene was that it is confirmed that Ilaria and the Sandsnakes have taken over Dorne. So, like I said, I was hoping that there was going to be someone from pulling the strings in Dorne, one of the noble houses was pulling the strings, and they're just going to make Ilaria and the Sandsnakes head of Dorne, which, to me, doesn't make logical sense. I feel like the other noble houses of Dorne would take issue with that, but I guess not. But whatever. I'll move on from that. The next one was one of my favorite scenes from this episode. It was the Arya scene in the House of Black and White. Very cool stuff here. We see her training advance. She's able to use all of her senses to block the Waif's attack. She essentially is embracing her role as being no one. I still think that that's eventually going to change. So for some reason it's going to change, and then that's when she's going to escape from the Faceless Men, I believe. But yeah, it was a cool scene. One thing I was disappointed in was seeing that Arya the Waif and Jaqen on screen at the same time, because I was kind of going with this theory that from last episode, because we saw we saw the Waif leave and then Jaqen come on the screen. I was going with this theory that perhaps the Faceless Men can indeed change shape and size along with their face, and I was hoping that Arya would be able to do that when she crosses those people off her list. And of course, that list is now only 3 people. It's Cersei, Gregor, Clegane, and Walder Frey. We'll see how many people have a hand. Arya has a hand in their deaths on that list. But yeah, it was a cool scene. Of course, they ask Arya, Jaqen says, if you tell me your name, the name of, she tells him Arya, that he will grant her sight back. Of course, she still stands fast and says, I am no one. Jaqen offers her the water from the House of Black and White, the same water that killed other people, but it gave Arya her sight back. So I found that interesting. I'm interested to see where that whole situation will go. I thought it was a pretty good scene, pretty solid. Now, of course, the next scene is pretty controversial. It is the Ramsay Bolton scene, and I have my issues with this scene for sure. Of course, we see the Umbers roll up into Winterfell. Small John Umber talks a lot of shit to Ramsay, which was cool. It was fun. One thing I found interesting was the fact that they essentially just wrote out the great John Umber. They said that he died. They didn't say how. They didn't show him dying in the Red Wedding, so I think they just kind of wrote him out. So I found that kind of disappointing and kind of shoddy writing, but, it is what it is. The interesting thing to me, of course, is the fact that we find out who the Gift is. The Gift is indeed Rickon Stark, along with Osha, and to prove that it's Rickon Stark, they throw a large black wolf's head on the table. Now, people are saying that that's a fake Shaggy Dog head. It very well might be, but this is my issue. If they are indeed playing a long con, the Umbers, in order to betray Bolton, I think that they are putting Rickon in a great amount of danger, because in my mind, I believe that Ramsay has no reason to keep Rickon alive. I know I've heard people say that they're going to use Rickon as a bargaining chip to get Sansa back, but in my mind, I believe that Ramsay should just kill Rickon on the spot, because if Rickon is alive, Ramsay, he will, and people and the other Northern Lords find out about it, he will have no sway over them, because they'll view Rickon as the true King of the North. And Ramsay should just kill him right away, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't want to see that, because I want Rickon to live, but I just think from a logical standpoint, Ramsay should kill him right away. Of course, I believe that the showrunners are going to do this whole thing where they're going to, for some reason, keep Rickon alive and to use as a bargaining chip. But in my opinion, Ramsay should kill him right away. It's the only thing that makes sense. So yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes. It was wild, man. I don't know what else to say about that, but other than it was wild. And then, of course, the last scene. And this was, to me, the most epic scene of in this episode. and it really boosted the episode up for me, was the Thorn Ollie death scene. Of course, we see Orthwell, Yarwick, and also, I guess, Bowen Marsh up there with nooses. They all give a little speech at the end. Essentially, one of them says, tell my wife tell my mother or wife, I don't remember which one, that I was killed by wildlings. And then Thorn gives this, in my opinion, one of his epic speeches. I mean, Owen Teale was such a great actor, and he gave so many great speeches on the show. I'm personally going to miss him. I didn't like the character of Thorn, but I liked Owen Teale's portrayal of Thorn for sure. And he essentially told him, if I knew the outcome and I had to do this over again, I'd still make the same choice. Ya bastard. That's essentially what I took from his speech. And it was just a great moment, in my opinion. And then, of course, we get Ollie, just looks at Jon, doesn't really beg for his life, but, it was time for him to go. Jon cuts the cord, they all choke, and we see their dead blue faces quite hauntingly. And then, of course, there's this whole kill Ollie moment, or kill Ollie movement. And I wanted him dead, but I wasn't fist pumping that I was seeing a 14-year-old being strangled to death. That's just my opinion. The scene after that where he gives Ed his coat, the Lord Commander's cloak. We knew that it was the next Lord Commander was going to have to be Ed, because they've never built up another Night's Watch member. So Ed's the only one that's still alive, so they had to make Ed the Lord Commander. It's as simple as that. I don't think we're going to be seeing much of the Night's Watch anymore, as Jon is going to be going down south. And I think that their time is limited. So, and the last line, and now my watch has ended. I just got chills. So yeah, that's my review of this episode. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If I'm going to have to give this episode an arbitrary rating, I give it a 6 out of 10, I believe. It was above average, in my opinion, but it lacked, it had too much filler for me to give it a higher score. That's just my opinion. The high moments were cool. I liked the Varys stuff. I liked the Tower of Joy was fine. It was adequate. Of course, getting the blue balls from not seeing what's in the tower kind of sucked, but and then of course the last scene really made it for me. So yeah, too much filler makes it a 6. But yeah, guys, so let me know in the comments what you gave it and what you thought of the episode in general. Make sure to like the video if you liked it, share it on social media, and subscribe. Until next time, adios.